So, really quickly before I go into volume 2 of The Adventures of Susan MeeLing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, chapters 5 through 9, I am going to go through volume 1 real quick to show you, real quick right there. There is an image that you can think is a scuba diver, but it's not. It's a merperson. Specifically, that one's a mermaid. But there's also, in this picture, I know it's a little bit difficult in regards, but there's a little figure there where it is a fin of a merperson, another mermaid, that was swimming off that I was taking a picture of. So I'm going to begin The Adventures of Susan MeeLing, Volume 2, or The Adventures of Susan MeeLing, Scuba Diver Extraordinaire, Volume 2, Chapters 5 through 9. Apparently there's a few issues in certain aspects. But there are some of my modeling pictures. So let me get to those. Apparently there were some issues with the aspects of how it uploaded in volume 2, because I obviously did not put this in this section, but yeah, that is what it is. But there's a few different pictures of when I was modeling in volume 2. And you know, when I did the Star Spangled Banner routine and all that. A few other things. That I, you know. So, chapter 5 is the next 7 scuba diving certifications from the previous chapter, which were 9 different certifications that I earned. So the first one discussed in chapter 5 is the specialty scuba diver of the use of the diver propulsion vehicle. That I earned in May the 10th of 2009. Ho W. Lee was my teacher for the course, and though some of the classwork had been done briefly in the location of International Scuba, the majority of the learning occurred at Clear Springs Scuba Park for the class. Ho Lee had taught me the various aspects of the SCUBA propulsion vehicle, how to disassemble and reassemble certain components, as well as to ensure a prolonged battery life to maximize the length of the scuba diving time. As the first scuba dive had been using the propulsion vehicle to circle around the sunken airplane after using the propulsion vehicle to get out to the airplane when in the lake. The surface interval we discussed, during the surface interval, we discussed other aspects about the propulsion vehicle, and as I was able to ask various questions in reference to the hydraulical aspects when utilizing the SCUBA propulsion vehicle, which Ho Lee answered in the detail to each of my questions at the time. The second scuba dive, after the battery had charged for the vehicle, we used the propulsion vehicle to go out to the sunken metal shark called Cisco, which is now the mascot for Clear Springs Scuba Park, as Brad, the new owner, had told me. We went around the sunken shark before utilizing the vehicle to travel a little bit more before returning to the land, which I was able to have fun testing the capabilities of in different movements. Ho Lee joked when we were on the surface afterwards it was almost like I was doing airplane tricks in the water with that, and he had asked how I had prevented the engine from seizing. I had joked I have a way when it comes to certain things and the water. And so some could almost joke I was testing certain aspects for my idea for the underwater travel system that I had been working on. But, you know, please do contact me if you're interested in that, because it is a possibility, as a few other things are. However, I have not been contacted about that at all, ever. And I guess either one of two things. One, it's already been made, which I doubt that. Two, if it probably has not been made, I guesstimate it has not been made. There's just not that much of an interest in it. Or three, the aspects of me not knowing about the hacking and stalking issue, and you know, the individuals who were hacking and stalking online my stuff, thought that I would just randomly give up that information, and absolutely not, because of certain safety aspects that very few would be able to understand. And, you know, when I had spoken with the lawyer on LegalZoom and attempted to explain it to that guy who was not a scuba diver, I pretty much knew to just keep my mouth shut. And, you know, I did write to the Shark Tank company people, and nobody contacted me back with a response that was of interest. The response I got was there was no interest in it whatsoever. And so I refer to, you know, number one on that one, where, yeah, or two. So, you know, it was just one of those, okay, well, it is possible. Absolutely. But there is that little issue of the mer people, and they will not just work with just anyone at all. They will allow and tolerate certain things, but they're not going to allow the underwater travel system without my approval and my direct involvement at all. I would guesstimate some individuals might have learned that. Maybe, hypothetically, the hard way, most likely. And so, you know, for like example, the scuba dive that I'll get to in reference to out at the Vandenberg, if anybody attempted to do that dive and thought that they'd be able to, I would guesstimate they were educated really quickly and really harshly. And probably spent quite a bit of time in a hyperbaric chamber, and probably have a punctured lung at minimum, and if not a few other issues. And the only reason that individual, because if it was two people who went down, probably only one person survived, and if somehow both survived, probably a lot of health issues because of not getting my permission. And the motor people being extremely protective. Extremely. So then there's the next specialty scuba diver certification of rec scuba diving. Jeff Davis was my scuba instructor for yet another course, of which the class had been completed in the Huntsville, Texas area because of the several wrecks that were sunk in there. But there also was at the Clear Springs Scuba Park. We went to the little wreck that's out there, but also some other stuff because of the different aspects of the line and whatchamacallit, the different tie points in comparison. And so there were multiple aspects in reference to that. Actually, because of this particular certification, I thought that I would be able to go wreck dive at the Vandenberg. And apparently I was not. I was told that it was not allowed to be gone into. So by technicalities, I did not go in to the Vandenberg. Technically did not. Swam around it, but I did not go in it by technicalities. The scuba dive master said that, you know, we weren't allowed to go inside of it. He did not say that I could not swim around it. Just saying, by technicalities, I did not enter the Vandenberg. But I'm just going to throw this out there. Maybe for the safety of scuba divers, some individuals might want to actually post the correct information. For the safety of scuba divers. That might be a smart idea. That might be. Not trying to tell anybody how to do their job. I'm just going to throw that out there that, you know, maybe if, you know, people were told the actual depth, you know, the discussion of, oh, I want to go inside and see what's inside the Vandenberg, it would have never happened. But, you know, it's a little late now because I was back in 2009 and this is 2020. So, you know, at least during the video thing. So, and when I went and did. So anyway, as Jeff Davis showed me how to utilize the line and reel when in the water after having class on land, he and I had gone through various points of discussion to prevent getting lost. Irony. He and I discussed ways to prevent kicking up silt, which is finer when inside of wrecks in the water, as the silt at the bottom of the ocean, as well as a few distinguishing differences. One of the discussion points had been in reference to various boat wrecks, which are in the Great Lakes, but in specific to Lake Michigan, which he had wanted to go see more of, because he apparently had gone out to a couple out there, and I was like, that sounds like fun, I want to go. I'll go with you, and he was just like, well, you know. But anyway, oh, it was this particular one, yeah. So this particular scuba class, Jeff had asked me what, and I don't know whether it was a second time he had asked me this particular question. I think it was, because I don't think he believed me the first time. I told him I wanted to dive the Marianas Trench, and he was just like, no, you can't scuba dive the Marianas Trench. I was like, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I'm not the only one who can, but yeah, I can. And he was like, no, it's like the deepest trench in the ocean. And I said, it's the deepest known. And he was like, no, it's the, and we bantered back and forth. I was like, no, Jeff. If I want to scuba dive at that depth, I'm gonna scuba dive at that depth, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Irony. And he called me a brat, and I said, yeah, tell me something I don't know. But I had told him I wanted to see the anglerfish again. And he had said, oh, you mean a picture? And I said, no, not a picture. And he was like, what do you mean? You can't go to the depth level where anglerfish are. I'm like, yeah, I actually like told people about the anglerfish before they finally found it. I did. And he was like, yeah, no, the angler, I'm telling you, I cannot tell a lie. And he was just, yeah, but no. And I was like, yes, but yes. And he just didn't want to believe me. And I was like, you don't know what cute little fishies there are. I mean, there really are some cute little fishies. And he was just, they're fish. Fishies, fish, fishies, fish, fishies. Because he's taller than me. And I was like, I'll call them whatever I feel like calling them. What are you going to do? And he just like, I'm going to tell you to call them fish, and I'm going to tell you I'm going to call them fishies. So, you know. And so, there's just, a few, I'm nobody like that is in scuba diving that was an instructor could genuinely say that I could not be bratty. Especially when it came to certain topics of conversation or discussion points. And Jeff Davis happened to be an individual that he tried he tried to tell me certain things, and I was like, no, I'm telling you otherwise. And he was like, but I've been scuba diving longer than you. Yeah, that's okay. I don't deny that, but I've been in the ocean more. And he was, you could not be in the ocean more than, well, when did you start going to the ocean? Because I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to the ocean like almost every summer. Just saying. And he just, there's a few other classes that's very similar to how we interacted with one another, and I was just as ornery. And it was not actually until the wreck diving class that he had actually seen my tattoos, because the first scuba diving class had been the dry suit certification with him, and though he was at Huntsville during the time for the photography class, he was already in the water, so this was literally the first time he saw my tattoos, and he was just, what are those? I'm like, they're tattoos. And which was really funny, because he pointed to Methuselah, and he was like, what is that? I'm like, oh, that's my pet snake. And he was like, yeah, it's a tattoo. No, it's a pet snake. I had a pet snake, I called him Methuselah. And, and then he just kind of looked at me, what did you just say you called that? I was like, his name was Methuselah, what? Is that not a common name? And he's like, no, not really. That's not really a common name for any at all. Like Methuselah. That's what she, yeah. Called him Methuselah. What? What? But then, yeah, I had discussed the aspects of the Aurora Borealis. I thought that I still think that that would be a stunning dive. I think that that scuba dive would be just beautiful. I can't think of a more beautiful scuba dive. And you know, there were a few times where, you know, Jeff would, Susan, tell me about what your ideal scuba dive is. Oh, the Aurora Borealis one? Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me. Okay. I want to scuba dive during the Aurora Borealis. It'll be cold, I know it, but you know, it'll be beautiful. Like one of the most, you'll never see a scuba dive that's as beautiful, and it'll always change. And so, it's just pretty. Plus, you know, want to see the stuff in the area, and so, you know, yeah, he did. It was almost kind of like, I realize now, like, I'm a little bit late on that regard, but if that was him flirting with me, I think that I kind of picked up on that just a little bit late, you know, but I bet he's still just as good looking. But yeah, he was definitely a cutie. There's no denying that. And I don't usually like blondes, so that's kind of like, that's kind of saying something. But yeah, he was, we would talk a lot, like a bunch of times. And so going on to the coral reef conservation, non-diving scuba certification that I earned on 22 May 2009. Matthew Porter, one of my from a prior class, had discussed a lot of things, even though some of the classwork was done in International Scuba, the classroom area. We also did some coursework, even though there's not coral reefs out in Clear Springs, there's a lot of natural growth out there of different plants. So did some scuba diving in reference to that. And then I had discussed a few different things with him, and then he had brought up how the move to the Galapagos Islands was getting closer. And I was like, did you know that, you know, because the first class we had talked about the cute little turtles, you know, that are a few centuries old. And I was like, did you know that that's where a close vicinity of where Darwin found out about the dodo birds? He was like, yeah, dodo birds are a myth. And I was like, no, dodo birds actually did exist. They just, they just, you know, they were friendly little birds, and they tasted really good. And they just got eaten, and, you know, they didn't put up a fight. And, you know, one dodo bird, I mean, you could realistically compare them to the turkeys in reference to when they're bred and raised that way. You know, not wild turkeys, of course. Wild turkeys, you know, you gotta know how to hunt those, and you gotta be a stealth ninja for those, because the slightest thing they will not tolerate, and they'll just gone. And so, but yeah, we discussed that, and I had told him about how I fought to stay in the state of Texas, because he had brought up that he was going to miss it because of the Galapagos. But I was like, yeah, but the water, like, the water is going to be beautiful. And he's like, yeah, but there are certain things. And I'm like, yeah, you know, the civilization sort of thing. Not saying anything negative about that. It's just one of those, you know, yeah, you're going to be in it's going to be extremely different in comparison. It's going to be beautiful. I mean, I'm quite envious in a good way that you get to go, but I mean, you're not going to have the same sort of building structures that you're accustomed to, and you're gonna have to actually become a little bit more proficient in certain things, but you'll have a good time and you'll get to see a bunch of stuff. I am envious though. I am so envious. But yeah, I had told him, and there were a couple other scuba divers around during that class, where I said I had fought to be in the state of Texas, and he had asked what I meant, and I told him I literally fought to stay in the state of Texas. And there were a few people that were just kind of really confused. Why would you? And I explained. I said, well, I woke up from my coma from my Palm Sunday 2000 head injury in the state of Texas. It's all I know. I don't, it's not that I don't want to go anywhere or see anything, but I don't know how well I would do if I didn't have someone that I trusted to be with outside of the state of Texas. And, if I were to go outside of the state of Texas, I'd go to the East Coast, because that's just what I naturally am kind of drawn to. I didn't choose to go certain places because of whatever, and I just I thought that it would just be better for me in certain regards. And if I was in a relationship that move out of the state of Texas, it would have to be someplace warm. The climate would have to absolutely be warm. I wouldn't be able to handle living in a cold temperature. The pain, I would guesstimate, would be excruciating. And but I actually fought to stay in the state of Texas. And he asked me to explain that. And I said, well, my now dead ex-husband had claims that he had gotten pulled back on IRR. And as he continued that lie after a few conversations, he repeatedly attempted to bring up just different areas. And every time he brought it up, I just, no, I can't. I can't do that. It's not something I would feel comfortable with. And, he had brought up different countries, like, we can go to Germany. No, I don't want to go to Germany. No offense to Germany, just no. But what about Russia? I don't know. I can't, look at me. I can't go to certain locations. Look at me. I mean, if I were to go over to certain places, and it's not in any offense towards those countries and their cultural customs, but look at me. You've heard how I speak, how difficult it is for me to step outside certain places. And yet you think that just because you're going to go wherever you're going to go, no, I can't do that. I'm not like you. I'm just me. So don't try to force me to be someone I'm not. I am who I am. And so as much as you want to attempt to make me something that I'm not going to conform to what you think I should be? Get over yourself. I am who I am. Accept it and stop attempting to force me to be what your idealization is. I am nobody but myself. And if you cannot accept that, get away from me. And he didn't want to accept that. And he did not want to understand that. And he was not the only one that attempted to try to get me to be something I am not. So the more I am pushed in a direction that I do not agree with, the harder I fight. And the more vicious I tend to naturally go. And alright. Told him that I hadn't gone back to New Jersey because of certain aspects of personal fear. And for me to acknowledge to be scared. I am not the type of female who will acknowledge easily of being scared. So if I actually say that I am worried about something, that's something you take heed of. And the Matt Porter and a few other scuba instructors who were around said that, well, we know if you ever leave the state of Texas, and it is not a place that has scuba diving everywhere available all of the time, you were kidnapped. I'm gonna end that on that, because, yeah, I obviously understand that, yes, I was targeted, and I'm not happy about that. And, you know, I haven't calmed down fully in certain regards from what occurred in Washington State or certain other things. Maybe the cell phone recording picks up the high-pitched frequencies from the nearby vicinity. And, you know, if you hear a high-pitched sound, it's either from 736 and or 725. So